Darkwood is unlike any other horror game I've ever played. What impresses me the most about it is how scary it manages to be despite being top-down, 2D and pixelated. Darkwood is a survival game in the more traditional sense, but with a bit of a twist. Trapped in the titular dark woods, you go out during the day, exploring, collecting supplies, crafting weapons, health items, whilst trying to find out what happened and how to escape. But then, of course, the night comes. And you really can't be out during the night. Return home, block the doors, barricade the windows, and make sure that you have enough fuel to keep the generator running. And wait. And it makes you wait. You have to endure every night as the occurrences gradually become stranger as each day progresses. I really don't want to explain too much because Darkwood really is that strange and surreal that it's best to go in blind and just try to make sense of anything in this bizarre world. I'm going to cheat a bit here. I think Forbidden Siren 2 is the one to recommend, but the first game is a bit more accessible as it's available in the classic section of the PlayStation Store, so I'm going to recommend both, more leaning towards the second. The Siren series is hard to quickly summarise, but essentially they are fractured narratives involving various people trapped on an island off the shore of Japan caught between different times. The sea is red, a mysterious radio tower glows on the horizon, and the island's inhabitants are returning to life to reawaken a god. A mechanic called sight jacking allows you to see through the eyes of your enemies, where they're looking and patrolling. We've become accustomed to hiding in closets from monsters, but this adds a whole extra layer of tension when you can see through the monster's eyes as they approach the closet you're hiding in. Whilst Forbidden Siren is wonderfully strange and unsettling, I have to give it to the second game for raw, uncomfortable fear. The Yamabitos still scare me to this day, but these are only a few of the bizarre enemies that you will come across. Little Nightmares was a game that slipped under my radar for a while. Anyone who has played Limbo or Inside will immediately be familiar with how Little Nightmares plays. Move from left to right, jumping, climbing, moving boxes and solving puzzles along the way. Here you play as a child in a yellow raincoat trying to escape a ship. The reason why you're on the ship and what the ship is exactly, I'll leave for you to find out. Now what really grabbed me with this game though was the enemies. Now again, I'm going to be careful because I don't want to spoil anything, because the first encounter you have with them is something that you will remember. And I can only speak for myself here, but their disproportionate limbs combined with their throaty screeches makes my skin crawl. I replayed Condemned only recently and I was amazed at how effective it still is. Some games during that transitional period at the launch of the 360 have aged quite poorly, yet Condemned still feels fresh. I think the recent horror trend of hiding in cupboards makes the hand-to-hand combat in Condemned all the more unique. The combat is visceral, impactful and desperate. Being able to defend yourself in a horror game doesn't have to result in less tension. When it's done right, as it is here, it can increase tension. Outside of the combat, Condemned has an atmosphere that is oppressive as hell. Turning every corner is tense and every sound will make you flinch. And the mannequins... oh god, the mannequins. Detention is set in Taiwan in the 1960s under Chinese martial law. Now that setup had me interested from the start, as it's something very specific that fuels the horror, but is also so detached from my life that it also enhances the horror. Detention is a modest little game, but accurately translates the classic survival horror formula into 2D and somehow loses none of the horror. Bleak is probably the best word for it. I've used oppressive to describe the atmosphere of other games on this list, but Detention is oppressive in the more literal sense. Taiwan under martial law plays directly into the narrative and horror of Detention, resulting in an experience that's far more human, even when engulfed within the supernatural. This is a game that builds and builds to breaking point, so when that tension finally breaks, you'll find out how scary detention can actually be.